And welcome to Learning from Leaders. This is your host, Patrick Dewar. I've got a great show for you today. How many of you are as old as I am and have children that are about to go to college? Well, for most of us, the thought of sending a child to college gives you, I don't know, waking up in the middle of the night afraid because it's going to cost a lot. In fact, the time when I went to college, I could pay for myself. Today, you almost have to have some sort of extra funding from somewhere. My guest today is going to be addressing just that. He is a college planning authority. His name, Kevin Campbell. He has a business that basically helps mom and pop get junior to college without going broke. Their program actually involves a coaching process that really gives all of the areas, or helps the parent and the student in all of the areas of funding, admissions, and the other aspects of getting someone in college without sending mom and dad to the poorhouse. My guest today, Kevin Campbell, College Planning Authority. Kevin, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, how much does it cost to go to college nowadays?
It's gotten pretty pricey, and that's kind of a trick question. Let me answer it this way. When you look at the costs of college these days, you have to look at the total cost of attendance. So when you look up the tuition schedule for a university, that only tells part of the story. What you have to look at when you're looking at these numbers is what is the total cost of attendance for that school for a year. These days, a private university is running anywhere from $40,000 to $50,000 per year total cost of attendance.
Per year?
Per year. Your public schools, your state schools are running about an average close to $25,000 per year. You might find some a little bit lower, down around 20, but total cost of attendance for a state school these days is running around $25,000.
Gosh, when I was in school, it was around $8,000. Now, I know that was in the Cretaceous, but...
Right. Now, you had mentioned, before the show, you had mentioned how much was a credit hour when you were going to school?
It was like $8 an hour.
And you went to Texas A&M,
right,
correct?
I went to a state school.
Just a minute ago, while we were waiting for the show to start, I looked up what the current rate is at Texas A&M. You said it was $8 per credit hour, and that was sometime in the 80s,
yes.
Right? Yeah. It is now $177 per credit hour at Texas A&M.
Oh, I'm stunned.
Yeah.
I mean, we were like, it went from 4 to 8, and everybody complained.
Yeah, it's now $177 per credit hour.
Now, normal student takes 12 to 15 hours, right?
Yep. Now, what's important to look at that also, so we just talked about how many credit hours, what the cost per year is, but the real underlying value or the question needs to be not how much does it cost for a year, but how much does a degree from that school cost? Right. Because the graduation rates vary greatly. At your public universities, the average graduation is 5.5 to somewhere or to 5.8 years.
So almost 6 years for a four-year degree.
And if that's the average, that means some guys are doing it in 7 or 8. Right. So that's something to keep in mind. Sometimes private schools can be more of a value, even though they have a higher sticker price. What's it going to cost when you get out of school? Because your private universities average 4.5 years to graduate.
So is it that they have lower requirements as number of hours, or?
It has to do, I believe, more with focus.
Oh, okay. If you're paying that much to get through it, I imagine you'd be pretty focused.
A gentleman I know was a graduate of TCU,
right,
in Fort Worth, Texas, and we were having the same discussion. And he mentioned when he was at TCU, you were expected to graduate in 4 years. There was a stigma associated with not graduating in 4. So that's not the case at a lot of the public universities.
I have a feeling that part of it is Dad has said 4 years is all I'll do.
Yeah.
You know? And if it's going to be $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 extra, you're not going to mess around.
Right.
But that's a dad thinking.
And something else to keep in mind, though, too, is that the private universities have more discretion in their scholarships, with their internal scholarships. They have more money.
Okay.
They have larger endowment funds. So when you start combining the fact that they have more money to give away to students and the accelerated graduation rates, then you start looking at the end price. Because what's really relevant is the number that's relevant is how much is this going to cost me when I'm done.
Right.
When I've got the paper and I'm going out into the workforce, how much have I spent or how much am I in debt?
That's right.
That's what the number that counts.
Well, and what I've heard, and you mean tell us the rest of the story, but I've heard that you literally can come out of college now with a mortgage in debt. In other words, the equivalent of $150,000.
Absolutely.
And no house.
Right.
And you can't get away from that money.
Think about starting go back 20 years or so ago when you
Right.
got out of A&M, and think about graduating with the amount of debt that an average house costs
Right.
in that era, and it's just stunning to come out of school with that kind of debt. Now, if you start doing research on the average amount of student debt, there's something that's missing these days in most of that research. Most of the times when you hear people talk about how much debt students are taking on, they're not including how much debt the parents took on for that student in those numbers.
Right.
So it's not uncommon between between the student's loans and the parents' loans to start seeing debt of $70,000 or more at graduation time.
Right.
So that's when they're out of school. Not to mention what they've spent while they were in school, but leaving school with $70,000 or more in debt. The problem then is, so you're coming out of school, or you're entering the workforce, $70,000 in debt, the interest on it. So it's not $70,000. You don't pay back $70,000.
Right.
You pay back a lot more than $70,000, and then you have to look at your earning potential on top of that. Do you get to keep every dollar that you make?
Right.
No, you get to keep a portion of every dollar you make. So if you start looking at how much earned income it takes you to pay back that $70,000, we're starting to talk about some staggering numbers.
Absolutely. And I know that you can't get away from it. One of the things that we want to do in each of our segments today on Learning from Leaders, when we're talking about college planning and college funding, it's a lot of pain. And a lot of parents believe that they can't qualify, or their kids can't, they want to get a scholarship, but scholarship money is few and far between. It's harder to get. So one of the things I want people to do is connect to you. So what would you want somebody to do who's heard this much? Hopefully they go on to this part 2 and 3. What would you want them to do right now?
Well, they can go to our website, which I believe is going to be on the screen, or they can pick up the phone and give us a call at 817-231-0233.
Now, what are they going to get for visiting with you?
Well, a tremendous amount of education.
Right.
We are a coaching and consulting company, and we really enlighten people as to what they're about to get into.
Right.
Most people get very overwhelmed with this process. There's a tremendous amount of moving pieces in sending your kids to college. It's the combination of higher education, your state and federal government, and the banking system all playing in one pie, and it gets very complicated.
I wouldn't doubt. Well, folks, I encourage you to connect to Kevin Campbell, call him, and become informed on how you can afford college. Catch us at part 2 and 3 right after this. And welcome back to Learning from Leaders. I'm Patrick Dewar, and today we're talking about college funding. For most of us, thinking about sending our kids to college, well, we don't. We hope. We don't plan on it. We don't really put a lot of preparation into it. We just kind of hope that the kid will do okay. Or we think back to when we were in school and what was it like for us? Well, when I went to college, I could work in the summer and pay for my own school, set myself up as an independent. But you know what? None of those really exist anymore. The industries that I was even a part of are not hiring like they used to. So today, knowing the insider secrets of how to get in college, stay in college, and fund college is the information that we're going to be talking about today. My guest, Kevin Campbell, a college planning authority. Kevin, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
I want to get into kind of the next level. Once somebody begins to work with you, what are they really gaining from you? What are they beginning to learn and know?
Well, an analogy I use often is that we're the CPAs of the college world.
Okay.
Understanding the rules and the way they apply to families, understanding the financial aid formulas, and then on top of that, our coaching programs that work with the students to make sure they're ready for school. When you wrap everything we do into a package, it's kind of like putting your college plans on autopilot.
Right.
We have a proven methodology that's been being used for a long time that works with getting kids into college. You've got several different facets that you really need to be paying attention to when you start planning for college. That is the financial side, for one, the student side, making sure the student is ready for school, and then the admissions side, getting them into the right schools.
Right.
And real quick to touch on each of those, if your student isn't ready for school, and I don't mean academically ready, I mean what I'm talking about is if they don't know why they're there.
Right.
If they don't know what their career field is, if they don't know why they're going to school, as far as if they don't have some direction, if they don't have a goal in mind, that's when you end up with students in school for 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Sure.
That's what we call a really expensive experiment, right? Well, and think about this for a second. Those last years of school, when you go beyond 4 years, at the end of 4 years, if you do everything that we talk about, including internships and all the things that we talk about in our program, you should finish school and be in the workforce, earning money, not still costing money, but earning money.
Correct.
So if you start looking at the true cost of those 5, 6, 7 years, those extra years, it's the tuition and total cost of attendance, not to mention the fact that they go up 5, 6, 7% a year, or sometimes higher. It's also the $40,000 or $50,000 a year that the student should be earning that first year out of school that they're not. So if you start looking at the real cost of those extra years, those costs can easily be $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 per year when you look at what it costs you plus the lost opportunity.
That's exactly right.
We start talking about some staggering sums of money. So that's when we talk about student preparation, we want to make sure that the student's aware of why they're at school, that they've got a goal. And we help with that with career counseling and running some inventories with the students to help them figure out a direction. We're not trying to get them to get specific into a subfields or something like that. We're just trying to get them to start heading in a direction.
Right. So
that you don't get that, the third or fourth year of school, you don't get that phone call from junior saying, Dad, I think I want to switch my major.
Right.
This is going to take another year or two.
Yeah.
It's just the phone call you want, right? So then you've got the admissions. You want to make sure that you're selecting the right school. A lot of times people will ask me, what is the best way to make sure that I'm getting the best deal? And I say, apply to the right schools for your situation. And that's a complicated piece to figure out, is what school should my child be attending. When it comes to a school, you need to try to meet the family's financial needs with the student's academic needs.
Right, right.
And where those two cross is a good field.
Right. Now, one of the things that I've seen you guys do that is really exceptional is that you don't pull anybody off of the table or any schools off of the table right away. Because some of the, like you said earlier, some of the private schools that may cost more per credit hour or more per year may actually be more affordable. It's one of the biggest keys I got out of watching your presentation, is that some of the schools are actually some of the private schools are more affordable to go to than the state schools. Now, the only way to really get an understanding of that information is to connect to Kevin. So by all means, I hope they connect with you. So,
and that's absolutely true. To touch on that again real quick, the private schools have much more discretion with what they're doing with their money, and they typically have much larger endowment funds. So don't let the sticker price of the school scare you away.
So it's a little bit like being able to buy a Mercedes at a Yugo price almost.
Right, exactly.
Because of the other things that are available.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great.
And it's the value proposition as well.
That's right.
Is a degree from Harvard worth more than a degree from your local state university? I don't know. You can argue that.
Right.
Does the market perceive that there's a higher value associated with a degree from Harvard or any other private Ivy League school rather than your local state university? It does. And studies show that that usually equals out at some point, but it's usually about a decade down the road that the earning potential between somebody with a degree from a local state, say Texas A&M or pick your state school, in comparison to a private school, that their earning potentials will eventually even out in about 10 years. But that brand recognition of the higher end schools, the private schools, it carries some weight.
You know, one of the things I'm curious about is it really still worth it to go to college?
It is. In my mind, it's a requirement.
Right.
These days you can't even get into the queue for a decent job without a college education. There are many fields these days that are requiring degrees that I think, frankly, in some cases they don't need degrees.
Right.
You know, there has been this huge push to have college graduates in every position, and in some industries it's gotten to the point where they're requiring college degrees for positions that maybe didn't used to have the degree, and so these days it is extraordinarily relevant. There's also the earning potential. A college grad, studies have shown that a college grad an undergraduate degree is worth $1 million in earning potential over a non-college graduate.
You mean just an opportunity value?
The average college graduate over a lifetime earnings makes $1 million more than a non-graduate.
That's amazing.
So it's absolutely relevant.
So is it worth $200,000 of time and attention
Right.
to gain $1 million? Well,
Yeah.
duh.
And the strategies here are, just as we I mentioned a minute ago that we're kind of like we use the analogy that we're the CPAs of the college world. We understand the financial aid process and how it works. There are strategies that can be employed to reduce the amount of money you're going to have to come out of pocket with for college, just as there are strategies that you can employ to reduce your taxes. So understanding how those formulas work brings down that cost, makes you eligible for more aid. And because what's relevant at the end of the day is how much does it cost you? You mentioned a minute ago $200,000. Hopefully you didn't spend that on an undergrad. Now you can at some schools.
Now, how would you want somebody to connect with you?
Our website, which I believe is coming up on the screen here, hit our website. There's tons of information on our website. Or pick up the phone and call our office, which is also on the screen, I believe.
Right. collegeplanningsauthority.com. Kevin Campbell. Call him, connect to him at 817-231-0233. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Learning from Leaders. I've got a great show going today, and it really is all about college planning. Now, college planning for a lot of parents today is just, well, I hope my kid gets into college, but you really can get your kid into college, through college, and fund it without going broke. And that's what my guest today is really teaching us about is, what are the key ingredients? What are the ways and the tools that you need to know, and how do you need to get engaged in the process rather than just hope? Kevin Campbell, College Planning Authority, welcome to Learning from Leaders.
Thank you.
I want to get into the whole process of the funding thing, okay? When you think about what are the steps of the process for funding a kid through college?
Well, you said just a minute ago that a lot of parents end up just kind of hoping this all works out. And something that we talk about a lot is that hope is not a plan, right? You got to start planning and be engaged. The one thing to touch on real quick is when's the best time to start
Absolutely.
this? When do we start this?
When do you start it?
And we get a lot of families coming in November of their senior year. And at that point, it's a little late. Can we help people like that? Absolutely. But the best time to be proactive planning is by the sophomore or junior year. You really need to hit the ground running and be engaged. You can start off the sophomore year. That's great. When people say when's the best time to start planning for college, I usually say when the kids are born. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be great, is if you started putting back money right then so you could pay for all this. Very, very rarely do we ever see people with that kind of resources sitting around. So we start looking at things sophomore and junior year. You got to get really engaged and really start figuring out how we're going to put this plan together. When you've got to get engaged and start seeking out whether you're going to do this yourself, it's going to take a lot of time. Right. To do what we do for a family would take that family several hundred hours of research and then guesswork. And there's a couple of ways you can do this. And I'll use a tax analogy again. Basically, there's 3 ways you can do your taxes. You can fill out the form and hope for the best. Right. And usually, if you do that, you're one of the people you're doing this on April 14th. Right. Right. You're staying up all night and filling out the paperwork and trying to get it into the mail. And that's what ends up happening to a lot of families. They don't quite know how to get engaged. This is an overwhelming process. They don't quite know how to get engaged. So they'll end up missing deadlines and that kind of thing. That's just not a good plan. So the second thing you can do is educate yourself and do your taxes on your own. Well, same thing applies to the college world. You can educate yourself, read books, find everything you can, and then try to tackle this on your own. And the third way to do it is to hire a pro. Right. Well, I mean, isn't the first or second one a little bit like doing brain surgery on yourself? It is, yeah. I mean, we're talking about a massive investment here, right? We're talking, for many people, this is next to your house. This is probably one of the largest investments you'll ever make. That's right. And we're talking about a staggering sum of money here. So does it make sense to engage a professional who knows what they're doing, has a plan, has a process, and knows the game? Right. And to me, absolutely. It makes sense. So those are kind of the 3 methods of doing this that you can choose from. You can tackle it on your own. You can try to educate yourself, or you can hire a pro who knows how to do it. Now, one of the things that I've seen recently is that the days of the kid being able to do it on their own without mom and dad's involvement is pretty much history, isn't it? Absolutely. So mom and dad are going to be involved whether they want to be or not. That's very true. And these days, it's very difficult for a student to be classified as an independent student until they're 24, or unless they've hit some other litmus tests, basically, to be qualified as an independent student. I recently had a gentleman who said, I put myself through school, I'm a self-made man, and he's doing very well. And I expect my kids to do the same. And I said, well, that's wonderful, except for the way college works these days, is particularly if you're a high-income earner, right, and you tell your kids you're not going to help them, you're actually hindering them even more. Because the schools, until that child reaches that independent state, or at this point they're an adult, I keep saying child, but they're really not. At this point they're going to college. Unless they are able to meet the qualifications of being an independent student, it's the parents' income that the schools are going to base their tuition off of. Now, so if you've got a high-income earner who earns several $100,000 a year but says, I did this on my own and my kids are going to have to do it on their own as well, they will be punished. The students will be punished for their parents' success, basically. Ow. Yeah, so that's something to keep in mind. And we're not talking about the same kind of money that we were talking about from back when you and I were in school in the 80s. Right. We're talking about a staggering amount of money. I remember people, working in a hamburger stand, flipping burgers, and getting themselves through college. That's not the case anymore. Right, right. Well, in fact, one of the things that I'm curious about this aspect, because I know you have tools and if you want to call it tests, for even where a parent's income and assets are. And you can help them position them so that things look the best, and I mean that in the most ethical way, the best to the college. Absolutely. This goes back to what we talked about, that there's, just like lowering your tax bill, there are ways that how you hold your money makes a difference. It makes a difference on your taxes. It also makes a difference in your financial aid. If you don't understand the formulas, what's included in the formulas, what's excluded from the formulas, what's shielded from the formulas, then you can end up costing yourselves tens of thousands of dollars. And in some cases, we've seen this be a staggering amount of money. One little mistake on these forms can cost you tens of thousands of dollars. Wow. So understanding the process and understanding how you have to have your assets structured in order to maximize in using legal, ethical, and moral standards to do so. I'm not by any means suggesting that somebody does something immoral or unethical in order to get more college funding. Right. It's just doing the right stuff. It's doing the right stuff, just like you do on your taxes. Right. Now, one of the questions I want to know is what
do you want people to do? They've listened to the shows, the 3 parts of the show today. What do you want them to do?
They could pick up the phone and give me a call. You can reach me at 817-231-0233 or hit our website, collegeplanningauthority.com. There's a tremendous amount of information on our website. We also teach free workshops.
Right.
And usually on our website is our free workshop schedule.
Very good. Now, can they get any information off of the website, any free things to help them?
There's tons of information on the website. There are, you can sign up for an ebook on the website. You'll get a chapter a day for about 15 days. It's like a 3 or 5 minute read.
Right.
We do a tremendous amount of education for people, trying to help them understand what they're getting into. And our website is a wealth of information.
So you guys are a real resource for helping someone send junior to college.
Absolutely.
Without breaking mom and dad.
That's the goal.
And all they got to do is go to collegeplanningauthority.com or call you. And I know that I'll tell you right now, you need to call it. Just call it. 817-231-0233. The number's on the line, on the screen. Just call him. Because the fact is that until you get into a dialogue, nothing really matters. You know what I mean? The fact is that we can literally give away and cost ourselves thousands and thousands of dollars just because we haven't gotten the right information. I challenge you, get the right information. Connect with Kevin Campbell of College Planning Authority. Get his information on, as far as getting prepared. If you've got a sophomore, a junior, or a senior, or that is college bound, then you need to connect with Kevin and make sure that you get all of the information you can, and by every means, I'd say rent his attention to help you get the money you need to go to college. It's been Learning from Leaders. Patrick Dewar. We'll see you next time.